Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So today I'm here to talk about the books that I read in September. So it is kind of a wrap up, but actually it's going to be more of my reading month at a glance. Because something that I decided to do with my channel starting from September is that I really do want to make an effort to do more individual book reviews. I believe that was one of my resolutions for the beginning of the year, was that I wanted to do at least one a month, and I really was not doing that. There are a lot of resolutions that I made at the beginning of the year that I'm really not following through. There's also been just generally a lot of conversation at the moment on BookTube about individual book reviews, the pros and cons of doing them, but also the pros and cons of doing like monthly wrap-ups, and how people really just pay attention to individual wrap-ups the month or maybe the month following when you've put them up, but then afterwards nobody really goes back to them, which is fair enough, as opposed to individual book reviews, which don't tend to get as much attention at the time of publishing them because, you know, maybe not many people have read that book, but then over time have a lot more mileage than a wrap-up. That's something that has definitely been true for my channel. Like, the small number of individual book reviews that I have done actually have some of my highest view counts overall. But I've been kind of reluctant to do individual book reviews or book discussions just because, like, for one thing, I know that like my little scattered thoughts about the books that I'm reading don't really constitute as proper reviews. I work in book publicity, so I know what a review looks like, but I also know that I don't do that. I don't know if I'm capable of doing like a full-fledged review. But then I also think that I'm not going to improve at that unless I try. I was also recently rewatching Charlotte over at Char Reed's channel. I remember when she started doing her videos, like she would do like 2-minute book reviews sometimes, or sometimes even like 10-second book reviews. It was her way of cataloguing her thoughts on all of the books that she read rather than just the ones that she had loads and loads of thoughts about, which is kind of how I've been doing my book reviews. If I had like an entire essay that I could say about it, then and only then would I do a book review. I actually remember her review video of Clash of Kings by George R. R. Martin, the second book in A Song of Ice and Fire, and being really tickled by it because she basically held up the book and said, "Did you like Game of Thrones? Then read this." And that was the end of the video. And I enjoyed that. I found that entertaining, and I don't think I would just do that for any of my videos, but it may just be that I have a couple of things to say. I don't know, I just think that should be fine. I don't think I should be putting pressure on myself. I'm also very conscious of the reason that it has been taking me so long to actually put up videos compared to when I previously was doing like 2 or 3 videos a week, is partially because like back then I was on furlough and I wasn't working, and so I had the time to edit down very large videos, whereas at the moment I'm working full-time and I'm doing things, you know, as extracurricular, and so I'm finding less time to edit videos, and I'm finding myself more intimidated by, you know, doing a massive wrap-up where I've been speaking for like 45 minutes to an hour and then having to edit that down to a 20-minute video, because believe me, there is a lot that needs cutting out of my videos. Sometimes it's not even just me talking, it is just like silence where I've forgotten my train of thought. That happens more than I care to admit. So part of it is that I just think that if I'm doing shorter individual book reviews, that might help me in my editing fear, because I do love actually finishing a video, actually publishing it and having the conversation with people about them. It's just that process of editing that always ends up tripping me up. So I'm hoping that this might make things easier. But then I did also want to have a little bit of a space to talk about my month of reading, where it's not just me holding up a book for a couple of minutes and talking about it, and not in the level of detail I want and just in like a very sweeping way, but just generally chatting about like where my reading is going. Did I have any goals for this month and have I been sticking to them? What is the genre split of what I've been reading? What's my star rating breakdown looking like? Like, what's my ratio of non-fiction to fiction looking like? Another thing that I've been trying to keep my eye on is my TBR and how high that number is. So that is basically what this video is going to be. I am just kind of trialing it out, so we will see how we go, and I hope that all made sense. So here we are at long last, my September reading at a glance. So in September I actually ended up finishing 8 books. I'm also in the middle of around about 8 books that I just haven't finished. 2 of those books were actually rereads, and those were Persuasion by Jane Austen as well as North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. The main thing that really took over my reading in September was me completing the 6 Tudor Queen series, reading the last 4 books in this series. So we have Jane Seymour, the Haunted Queen, Anna of Kleve, the Queen of Secrets, Kathryn Howard, the Tainted Queen, and Kathryn Parr, the Sixth Wife, all by Alison Weir. Another historical fiction sequel that I ended up reading was The House with the Golden Door by Elodie Harper. This is the second book in the Wolf Den trilogy. And then the last book that I finished in September was Dracula by Bram Stoker. This was actually my first time reading this. I actually found this beautiful copy at Burford when I went for Burford Literary Festival, and I've always wanted to read this, and every Halloween I say that I will read Dracula. So this year, when I saw this copy, I thought, okay, now is the time. I actually do have to read this. I ended up DNFing one book this month, and that was The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. I got this around about my birthday. I started reading it mid-month, and I just really wasn't getting into it. I've previously read The Flatshare and The Switch by Beth O'Leary, and kind of quite liked both of those. Beth O'Leary has always been kind of like a 3.5 star author for me. Like, I can get on board with her concepts, but something just doesn't always jump out to me. You know, her characters never get me in the feels quite as much as others do. And I had a similar kind of thing with The Road Trip, which was her third book, but I just wasn't getting into the story. Didn't really feel attached to any of these characters. It's a book where we are jumping between like 3 different perspectives, and I never felt like I was getting enough time with any of these women. And so yeah, in the end, I just thought, I'm not enjoying this, so I'm just gonna give up on it. As I mentioned, I do have quite a lot of books that I am currently reading, which for me, I count as books that I've read at least like 30 to 50 pages off, and I do have every intention of continuing with them, but I just haven't finished them for whatever reason. And to be honest, when it comes to many of these books, considering that we are now going into October, and I did post an October TBR, which includes like Victober reads, it includes like spooky reads, a lot of these books don't really fall into those categories, so I don't know if I'm going to end up finishing them in October either. Included in that ever high currently reading pile, we have Elektra by Jennifer Saint, a little bit of ancient Greek myth retelling. We have The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell, The Time Traveller's Guide to Regency Britain, The Women of Troy by Pat Barker, The Social Life of Books by Abigail Williams, and Joan by Kathryn J. Chen. Oh, and I almost forgot The Cookbook of Common Prayer by Francesca Haig. This is the book that I'm actually the furthest into. I have read 182 pages in this so far. I'm enjoying it. I'm getting through it though quite slowly, and I don't know if it's one that I'm going to feel like in the October-y mood to read. Yes, I am aware that October-y isn't really a word. It's a mood, it's a feeling. In terms of my rating of the books that I did finish, I know that a lot of people find star ratings to be a little bit contentious. Some find them useful, some people just think that they mean nothing at all. For me, I don't really mind star ratings so much. I think being able to give a quick indicator to somebody about my thoughts, about my summary of a book, you know, being able to say that something is 4 out of 5 stars, 3 out of 5 stars, actually helps me quite a lot. Especially when you are listing like all of the problems that you have with a book and people think, oh, so you must not like it. And it's like, oh, no. It was still like a 4 out of 5 stars. I just had issues with it. I just had thoughts and opinions, and I probably wouldn't have had so many thoughts and opinions if I didn't kind of like it. That doesn't always hold true. I also have lots of opinions about things that I hate too. But I completely understand if you don't find star ratings helpful, you can just skip along to this. But for those who are interested, I am doing this in terms of how the Storygraph do star ratings, which includes 0.25, 0.5 and 0.75 ratings. My lowest rated book was actually Anna of Kleve, which I gave 3.25 stars. Kathryn Howard the Tainted Queen by Alison Weir, as well as Persuasion by Jane Austen, got 3.5 stars. Katherine Parr, The Sixth Wife by Alison Weir, Dracula by Bram Stoker, and The House of the Golden Door by Elodie Harper all got 4 stars. Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen got 4.5 stars from me, and then my reread of North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell actually got 5 stars. It was a 5 stars before, it's a 5 star now, which gave me an average star rating of 3.96875 stars. I'd love to see what that 0.96875, did I get them all there? I'd like to see what that star would look like. An almost star, which is not bad going at all. I feel like there's often quite a lot of variation, but maybe because I was reading a whole series one right after the other, that probably contributed to having fairly consistent feelings about my reading this month. In terms of my fiction versus non-fiction split, we're having a rare month where I actually read 100% fiction. You know, usually I would have at least a couple of books that were non-fiction in my reading pile. I never tend to get more non-fiction to fiction, which is a shame because I tend to be most interested in fiction when it comes to my TBR. I just tend to read it slower, and that's usually why I end up reading more fiction than non-fiction. It's just a speedier read for me. So that's definitely something I should bear in mind, because I do typically like to see my non-fiction fiction split being 1/3 non-fiction to 2/3 fiction. You know, in an ideal world it would be more 50-50, but in terms of, like I say, how I read and my speed of reading fiction versus non-fiction, that's probably more realistic. In terms of genres, I basically just read 2 genres this month. 3 classics to 5 historical fiction. Obviously you could break those classics down into their own genres. Dracula maybe counting as horror, and Persuasion and North and South counting more as romance, but to be honest I'm fine counting it as just classics. That's easy enough for me. I also wanted to have a moment where I talked reviews, so linking to the individual book reviews that I was going to do for these books. So far I have filmed videos for The House of the Golden Door and the 6 Tudor Queen series. I am reviewing them all together, though I don't think either of those will be up by the time that I've actually posted this video. And you know, whenever these videos do go up, I will link them down below. I most likely will not do a video about my reread of Persuasion, to be honest, but I do have plans to do a video on Dracula and potentially do one about my reread of North and South. I do have some notes for that. And when those videos are posted, like I say, I will be sure to link them down below. And then the last question that I have to really wrap up this reading at a glance for September is to talk about my TBR. I have been saying that I really want to whittle down my TBR, and I've been having some months where I've been doing really well at that, and then others where I just buy and buy books at a ridiculous rate. My birthday really did a number on my TBR. Also because of the fact that currently I've got books just kind of strewn all all around my bedroom. It's been kind of hard to do this counter, but I think at the moment I have 56 books on my TBR, and I will be sure to keep you updated as the months go on. So there we go, that is my little reading wrap up, my reading month at a glance for September. As I mentioned, it is a different style of reading wrap up to what I have usually done. I do like the idea of just kind of sitting and chatting about how my reading is going at the moment. Do let me know if you've got any suggestions for other things that I can keep a look at, any other questions that I can ask myself about my reading for the month. And let me know if you've got any thoughts about the books that I've spoken about today. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.